Hey everybody, welcome back to hashtag Neo Pagan November. Word to maybe other people who are dyslexic, don't spell pagan with an E-N, it's A-N. I was wondering like why, how come every time I try to search the hashtag, like I'm not getting anything and my videos haven't been getting as many views, which is fine because I'm like totally new to the witch tube community, but it's because I was spelling it wrong. So pagan is A-N. Just goes to show you how not typical of a witch I am. So this is actually the third time I've tried to film this. I feel like the statement of I'll never forget is a very loaded one. We tend to, if we're not going to forget something, if something is completely unforgettable, I always forget to pull my microphone down and then I shout at you guys. If something's unforgettable, it's usually because it just was really impactful. So you have an emotional, response to it. And being in the outside window of that eclipse and full moon on Monday, I have been purging emotionally. And I probably will never upload the first one that I did today, sharing something, but at least it helped me to like purge it, even though you guys will never see it. It totally like helped my heart to just get that off my chest. So then I thought, well, what can I talk about? Like, I'll never forget. So there's a story that I keep saying, tell me if you guys want to hear more about this story, which is, I have this huge Ganesh sticker right here on my wall. I should be filming this with my, phone, but maybe I've been trying to get better at editing. Maybe I'll try to edit in a picture of that sticker. So it's like about this big, and I'll never forget when I moved into this house in 2014. I had gone through Dark Night of the Soul after Dark Night of the Soul after Dark Night of the Soul for like the previous 6 years. Moving constantly, divorces, death, just like upheaval on levels you could never imagine. Scandals, so much. And my new boyfriend and I at the time, we're married now, but he was my boyfriend at the time, we're blending our two families. He had 3 kids and I had 2. And we needed to find a home to live in together. And both of our credit had been destroyed through divorces. And it was just really hard. I can't even imagine people trying to find a home now in this market, but it was still hard back in 2014. And somehow I was able to find a decent home. We were looking for a home with enough bedrooms so that each of our kids would still have their own rooms. And we didn't want to be like, hi, this is your new stepbrother. You share a room with them. You've never met them. Like, we wanted to give everybody their space. I was raised in a blended family, 9 kids in a 4-bedroom home. And my parents took up one of those bedrooms. So that's 3 bedrooms for 9 kids. It wasn't a good time. So that was a priority that no matter what we had to do, we wanted our kids to be comfortable. So we had found a pretty decent home. And within 3 months, I moved in February, and then my freshly, divorced ex-husband passed away in May. And then my boyfriend, who like was going to be moving in, he moved in June. And by July, it was like July 4th, because I remember I was in Las Vegas. Some neighbor who wasn't a fan of us moving into his neighborhood or whatever, he literally lit our house on fire. He was a veteran of the first Iraq War. And it was like July 4th, so there's fireworks going off, and that was triggering him, and he thought we were the enemy, and so on and so forth. I wasn't home. I was in Las Vegas. My 2 girls were staying with a sister, but my husband now, his oldest, which was, I think, 18 at the time, he and his girlfriend were staying at the house watching the house. Well, they start seeing some, like, really weird behavior going on, but, you always just like, I feel like we give people too much of a benefit of the doubt sometimes because you don't want to be rude. You don't want to offend somebody by being like, hey, bro, why are you in my back yard, like with an axe? He was like going around with an axe and he was doing really weird shit. Well, all of a sudden, literal Molotov cocktails, bottles were coming crashing through the windows, lit on fire. He had put a row of fire starting pellets all the way from our gas line that he had cut and made a line of fire starting pellets all the way to his house to a fire pit that he was getting ready to light. And if he would have done that, not only would have that whole house blown up, killed my stepson and his girlfriend, probably would have taken out some of the neighbors' houses. Well, through this glass breaking with the Molotov cocktails, my stepson and his girlfriend were hiding under a bed. Was that the best move? Probably not. Should have they called 911? Yes, but they were scared. So luckily, a neighbor heard the glass breaking and he called 911. So they got there right as he's getting ready to light the fire pit that would have lit the fire pellets that would have ignited the house. This was all over the news. I get a call. I'm in Las Vegas with my new boyfriend and his friends, and it was one of my friend's 30th birthday, and we're at this bar, and all of a sudden I get this call from the city fire department telling me what's happened, and I'm like, oh my God, what? So I'm not going to get into that whole thing. There's way more to that story. But anyway, so now we're homeless. We're a brand new family. I've just buried my ex-husband, the father of my children. There was a lot of scandal surrounding my relationship with my boyfriend. I've gone into this in other videos. If you want to know the dirty details, if you scroll all the way down to my twin flame journey, it's like a 12-part thing that I filmed like 5 or 6 years ago during a Mercury retrograde and my throat chakra needed to purge. You can go watch that. But anyways, we're homeless essentially. So, the landlord that we didn't have renter's insurance. So anything that was ruined was ruined. Like we were literally, don't ask me how my relationship with my husband made it through. This was the hard, I do not know how we made it. So we are homeless. We're looking for houses again. I find the house that I'm in now, and it was a beautiful, I'm not saying these things to be like, look at me, but this is an almost 5,000 square foot home up in the hills in a very affluent area of the town that I live in. Okay. So it was way out of our budget, double what either he and I had been paying. And we had shitty credit and no money for a down payment, but I don't know who I am, but I was like, we need this for our family. It's the only way we're going to be able to make this work. So I called and sweet talked the landlord. That was right at the time that I was quitting my job of 20 years because the company didn't give me any bereavement pay after my ex died, even though we'd only been divorced for like 28 days, 30 days. And I had been married to him the entire 17, almost 18 years I had worked at that position. So I had taken 6 weeks off for like an FMLA, and then I had just gone back to work for a couple weeks, and I couldn't do it. I was not okay. I just couldn't be there looking at the same people and doing the same thing. When something like that happens, I think everything in your life has to change. And not to mention that when he and I were married for all those years, he was, not filing taxes when I thought he was. So all of a sudden, right at the same time he dies, which was total coincidence, the IRS starts garnishing my wages, and the IRS doesn't give a fuck if they leave you with $200 out of your $1,500 check. So I was like, why am I going to come to work every day, leave my babies in their time of need? My daughters were 14 and 10 at the time that their dad died. When I am not okay just to work a job when the government's just going to take my money. So anyway, I quit my job. Well, by doing that, I was able to take my 401k. So go back to the house that we'd found. I was like, hey, I have the money. I said, we have crappy credit, but I do have the down payment for the home. And the home was so expensive. Most people in this area at the time did not rent. In that time, most people that rented just didn't have good enough credit to buy a house because the housing market to buy a house at that time was much more affordable. Now it's out of control. But at the time, it didn't make sense for anybody to be renting a home in that price range, if that makes sense. So, and if they did need to rent, they couldn't afford a house in that range. So I basically told my husband now, who was my boyfriend then, I said, look, what would you be paying if you were living on your own? What would I be paying if I lived on my own? We're going to have to make this happen. I had found out that I was going to be able to start receiving Social Security benefits for my kids and myself for my husband's passing, which I was like, we'll just do that until I figure out what I'm going to do for a new job. So anyways, long story short, we move into this house, but there was one stipulation. They were like, you guys have it. However, the house is for sale. So we're going to sign a year lease, but if the house sells before then, you have to move. So we were like, oh, that's crappy, but we really had no other choice. So we moved in. It's almost 5,000 square foot home, 5 bedrooms, my office. My husband has an office, plus a dining room. Like it's a very large, beautiful home. We had no furniture. We had literally nothing, bare walls. We were just scraping by, but we were trying to give our family a chance to make it. And this room that I'm in now, that is my office, was just a random room that we literally had nothing to put in here. So I thought, well, actually for the first couple years, I just let the kids come in here and do art. We had like a desk in here and they would come in here and color and whatever. Well, so throughout this, I'm going through my grief process and my guilt and my shame. Again, it'll make sense if you go watch my twin flame journey, why I would have so much guilt and shame. But I'm going through all this. So this is how I really got on my healing journey. I was already into law of attraction and all of those things from Oprah, but now I'm like going down the Reiki rabbit holes and crystal healing. So the first thing that I did was I went to a crystal healing certification. So I started accumulating quite a lot of crystals. So I thought, oh, you know what? We'll just use this room. I'll set up a little altar, and I still have my original altar. It's over here underneath. You can't see it. And we'll just make it a meditation room. And the reason that I did that is because the meditation room doesn't need any furniture, and I didn't have any furniture, and I didn't have any money to buy any. So I thought, okay, this is going to be my crystal room. And I had one little altar full of a few crystals and a few pillows. And I went to Ross and I bought, again, I'm going to figure out how to insert pictures. I bought a couple of like Buddha type art to make it like feel like a meditation room. I have been a transcendental meditator for like 12 years. So I do actually meditate, but who needs a whole meditation room? So anyway, that was it, my crystal meditation room. And I had purchased this big decal of Ganesh off of Etsy or Amazon or somewhere. And it's literally like a $20 stencil. Okay. But I was like, no, I don't want to waste it. The house is for sale. What if we have to move in like 3 months? I can't take that with me. So I refuse to put it on the wall. So we start coming in here and I'm meditating and really honestly not using it that much. Well, I remember like 6 months in, we did get our first phone call from a realtor saying, hey, somebody wants to come look at the house. If you've ever sold a house, you know how uncomfortable it is to have strangers going through your home. But just imagine how much worse it is when you don't even want the house to sell. You're going to be homeless. If this house sells, you're out on the street. So, and you're having to like clean your house and make it smell like vanilla. And you don't even want like them to. My friend actually crocheted me. She cross-stitched me a picture that says, get the fuck out my house, bitch. But it's like in this beautiful frame and it's like cross-stitched and it has a little house on it. So it's like really unsuspecting unless you read it. And I would put that on my kitchen counter. So anyways, that first time that the house got put up for sale, it made me panic. And I'm like, we have to do something. So I started to call back on my law of attraction knowledge. And I'm like, we have to manifest this house. Well, we were in no position to buy the house at the time, but we just needed to manifest to be able to continue to rent it. So my boyfriend at the time, again, my husband now, but my boyfriend, he was like a complete atheist, wanted nothing to do with spirituality, but I was like, look, do you want to be homeless? He's like, no. So we began to come in here during every single new moon to manifest. And I taught him, and we would write letters and we would write, petitions. And I would just basically like talk to this home and be like, we are so happy here. This was the first happiness or like time I could breathe. And I don't know how long. Well, that first year turned into a year. So it was time to re-sign the lease again. And somehow, some way we had managed to make it here a year. So we signed the lease again, same stipulations. The house is for sale. If it sells, you guys are going to have to go, da, 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 da. And this played out for 3-4 years. I'm not kidding. We just were able to stay. And then the market started to pick up again. That was really, the housing market wasn't doing anything then. And the housing market started to pick up. And so I knew that the house was going to be coming up for sale again. So we really started to double down. And finally, I was like, if I want to own this house, I have to act like I own it. Put the fucking decal of Ganesh on the wall. Why am I acting like I wasn't decorating? I wasn't hanging. Not only did I not hang up Ganesh, all the walls in this 5,000 square foot home were empty because I was like, why bother when I'm going to have to take it down again? Because I had moved so many times in the previous years through my husband's addiction and separating from him and going back to him and separating from him and going back, foreclosed on my house. Like I was moving probably 2-3 times a year for like 4 years. Okay. So this was the first time I felt like I could breathe. I felt like I was safe and I did not want to lose that. So I was like, what are you thinking? Like law of attraction, you have to act like it's yours. Put the fucking sticker on the wall. So I put the Ganesh sticker on the wall. This is after like 3-4 years of manifesting. But that is when we really doubled down on our manifestation. Like this is our home. We own this house. No one else is going to be in here. We really started to take it seriously. And, like that year, I don't remember if this was the 4th year or the 5th year. We've been here since July of 2014. Okay. So, and then we ended up purchasing it in August of 2017. So what is that? 2014, 15 to 16, 16 to 17. So maybe 3 years into it. And I mean, to the day that my husband's short sale of his previous home went off of his credit report so that we were able to buy it. But I was not working. I was starting to do tarot readings like downtown at a little shop, but I was making barely enough money to pay my rent to the shop owner. I wasn't like making income. My Social Security really didn't count. So my husband had to qualify for the entire loan on his own, which he was able to do. But he was able to qualify like basically to the dollar. And if you've ever bought a home, you know that realtor fees are like 6%, right? Well, 6% of a house we could barely afford was too much. So luckily he called in some favors from somebody who was a realtor who was willing to write the loan or write the sell of the home for free. The people that owned the home were so gracious. They lived in Texas. They didn't build this house. Their brother did. And their brother went bankrupt in the first like housing market crisis back in 2008, 2009. They had to bail him out. So that's how they ended up with the mortgage. They let their brother finish building it. And within like 3 months, he wasn't paying the mortgage. So they had to kick their brother out and it became a rental. And like I said, the rental market for houses like this isn't a lot. So they were just so thankful that we had paid our rent on time every month for that 3 years or whatever it was. And they really wanted to see me and my husband and our family be able to stay here. So they're like, we'll do whatever we need to do to make it so that we could sell the house to you. And luckily, they really didn't have a pulse on the housing market here in Utah because they had lived in Texas. And they had no idea that the housing market was coming up as much as it was. Thank God, because again, we could not have purchased it for one more penny. So everything literally fell into place. We were able to finally buy the home of August of 2017. And within a year, probably 6 months, the housing market literally started to explode here in Utah. Like crazy, you guys. If you live somewhere like Texas or places where people from California are like moving out of California, like it's a mass exodus, you know, like Idaho, there's places where our population is like almost doubled. So the prices of our homes has doubled. Since we purchased this home in the end of 2017, the price of this home has doubled. Now that sounds great if you're trying to get a home equity line of credit, but that means we have to pay taxes on that amount, which kind of is bullshit. But this isn't even about that. This is about literally we manifested this house, my dream home. And when I did the numerology, this video is going way longer than I wanted to, but I've been wanting to tell this story for a long time. I don't know if anybody's ever looked into, there's numerology for homes. If you do the numerology of your house, every house has a certain energy. This house wants to be worked in. This is a work from home house. This room was literally begging for somebody to make it an office. And once I did that, because then I started working on my first psychic hotline in February of 2019. So really within like 6 months, maybe was it 2018 that we bought the house? I'm trying. I can't keep track of all the dates, but my business has been very successful. We'll just put it that way. And because the numerology of this house wants to help you make money. It helped us to be successful. It's kept a roof over our house. And now I've lived in this house longer than I have ever lived in any house other than when I grew up with my dad from like 0 to 12. This is the longest I have ever been anywhere. So I know that there are a lot of people that are struggling with like potential homelessness because the housing market is so crazy. Interest rates are so high. Rent is through the roof. If you are struggling with needing to find somewhere to live, you can manifest a place. And here's my biggest tips on that. At the time, throughout that journey, a show called Marie Kondo on Netflix. It was like Marie Kondo. It was a show where you basically like declutter. I think it was called Tidy Up with Marie Kondo, this adorable Japanese like professional organizer. And what she would do is you would like pick something up and you would have to ask yourself, does this spark joy? And if it doesn't spark joy, then you need to donate it. But before you donate it, you thank it for all of the joy that it did bring you and for all of the service. And I remember crying my eyes out the first episode of that I watched. And I remember sitting in this room and just showing this house, like on my knees on this floor, like thanking this house for keeping my family safe and keeping us together as a family and giving us a fresh start. And like, I talked to this house like it was a family member, and it is now. Me and my husband are both like so attached. I don't know if we'll ever be able to get out of here, even though we have dreams of living on a catamaran. And in order to buy the catamaran, we might need to collect in on that, that equity that we have accrued on this house. But don't let anything stop you from having what you want. Nothing. Not bad credit, not lack of funds. I know that it sounds kind of like cliche, but you can truly make anything happen. If you put enough effort and belief into it, you can make your wildest dreams come home. So hopefully I'm able to get my editing on point tonight and edit in the pictures that I want to show you guys. But, flash forward, my husband just built me this beautiful wall of shelves. That was this, earlier this spring of 2022. And it is literally my she shed, my crystal cave, my office, my everything. It is my sanctuary. And I am so grateful every single day. I am grateful to be here. If I do leave the house, which isn't very often, but every day that I'm driving up my street, I am literally looking at this mountain and looking at this hill. Sorry, I've got readings coming in. I am so grateful to be here, and gratitude. So also as like a last minute help for that, wherever you're living, even if it's with your mom in her basement and you're miserable there, you need to show gratitude for your current living situation. Because if you are miserable with your current living situation, you're putting out the energy of miserable with your living situation. So you have to find a way to be in gratitude for the current situation that you have, no matter how difficult it is, because that will attract more of that, right? So find a way to fall in love with where you're at, fall in love with your circumstance somehow, some way, so that it puts that ripple effect out in the universe to attract your, dream home, whether an office or an apartment or whatever it is. And that's my spiel. I've got to go do those readings, so that'll shut me up. And hopefully I can spell pagan correctly. Okay, you guys, see you tomorrow.